What's up, everybody? Welcome back to our stock market live streams here on the Prospero.ai Twitter and YouTube channels. Hopefully, everybody had a fantastic holidays. Merry Christmas, everybody. We haven't seen you guys in a while. We've been on a bit of a hiatus with the live stream. So, welcome back. Glad everybody who's watching this live found us today. If you're watching in the future or live, hit that like button. We have a lot of great topics to go over today on the stream. Excited to jump into these. We are seeing some major moves going on in the markets. A little bit of a dull day overall in the indexes. We have the QQQ up in the green today, 0.07%. The SPY down 0.04%. So not so much volatility in the overall indexes here. But some stocks are making major moves. So we will get into all of these throughout the stream. Let's check in on the Prospero net option sentiment for SPY and QQQ as we begin here, and we will get the show on the road. We're going to go through all the topics as well. Wow, the QQQ is up to 40 on the day for the net option sentiment, and SPY is at 21. So we're seeing quite a climb there for net option sentiment, just ahead of, I know we've been saying it for a while now, and I feel like everybody talks about like the entire month of December as the Santa rally in the markets, but actually, I believe today is the first day of the real quote-unquote Santa rally that people track in the markets. It's, I think, today through January 2nd, I want to say. It's like the 5 trading days after Christmas, I believe. So we will see if it comes true again this year, and the market is green overall through that time. We're going to talk a lot about topics today that are positioning us for 2026. So how can we think about stocks that made big moves this year and positioning ourselves for next year? So we're going to look first at some of the projections that different firms have made across Wall Street. A lot have come out with how they expect the markets to move in 2026. I'll go through a few of them, and we'll ask George to give his Prospero.ai 2026 stock market prediction for ourselves, what we expect from the overall markets. We got our first chat today. Thank you, Kevin, for entering the chat. Good afternoon from Lakeland, Florida. Good to see you here today, Kevin. Appreciate you finding us. I know everybody who's tuning into the stream today is like the real hardcore Prospero.ai stream watchers, because we are on such a weird time. And I know everybody's schedule is probably very crazy this week because of the holidays. So appreciate you finding us for sure, and everybody else that has been tuning in already. So we've been discussing a lot on the streams. The ASTS launch has finally occurred. The stock, although initially reacting very well, let me take a look at it right now. I think it hit over 90 a share on launch day, has pulled back a bit. So ASTS was as high as, yes, 90 a share on December 24th, Christmas Eve, launch day, or the day after launch day. It's now pulled back for 2 straight days, and we've been calling ASTS and LEU our stocks of the year for 2026. So let's get George's latest thoughts on ASTS, what he expects from them going forward, and if this reaction is a little bit more than he expected, or just why are we seeing such volatility in that name. We have another person in the chat. How do I say your name? L-A-U. Lau6434. Hello from Venezuela. Hello to you as well. Thanks for finding the stream and joining the chat. By the way, if anybody's new to the streams, hit that subscribe button and feel free to leave any chats for us, any questions you have about stocks, business, AI, tech, macro, micro, whatever it is. Happy to answer. Mario's here. Afternoon from Peru. Good morning, Mario. Well, is it not morning, afternoon, my bad. 2:05 p.m. here, where I'm tuning in from. So I'm tuning in from actually North New Jersey, and we are getting our biggest snowstorm tonight. Hopefully, I'm excited for the snow in 2+ years. So hopefully the weather people aren't overhyping this and we'll actually get the snow finally. ENT in the chat. Hello from Vienna in Austria, if anyone knows. Wow, we have a worldwide audience here today. We've had Florida, Venezuela, Peru, and Austria. And now we have someone from Israel too. Ori, what's up, everybody? We have our international audience tuning in here. Ori, it's 21:05 for you. So what time is that? That is, what is that? 9:05 p.m. if I'm not mistaken. Thanks for staying up late with us. All right, let me run through some more of these topics here. Otherwise, we're not gonna be able to get through them all. So, where did I leave off? Okay, at the ASTS story. So after that, since we'll be on space at that point, I'm going to spin into the banker that has a large percentage of the betting odds to be the financial backer for the SpaceX IPO. I'm not sure if this is actually like super beneficial for a large bank to win a large IPO like this. If you haven't seen it yet, we will unveil which bank is looking like it's going to be the leader of the IPO for SpaceX. And I'll ask George, like, how beneficial is it for that bank to be running this IPO? Mario said buying opportunity. I saw a lot of stuff, even though the markets aren't moving much overall today. Some of those growthier names are down again. So yes, buy the dip, it looks like. Hey, Nick is here. What's up, Nick? Merry Christmas and happy holidays all. Same to you, Nick. Thanks for finding the stream here today. Oh, I'm glad everybody found us, even though we're at a very weird time here. Okay, we will be moving on to crazy move happening in silver and gold. Really more so silver recently. It's kind of going like parabolic here and up about like 150% year to date. Such a crazy move. It seems like it's becoming a little bit of like a FOMO, even dare I say like meme stock at this point with the way it's moving. It's getting a lot of attention now. So I'll ask George his thoughts on silver and how this move even happened in the first place, why it's happening, if it's a little bit concerning. When we were covering the gold rally earlier this year, gold is usually like a hedge, so silver is a similar type of thing. Stephen, how do you come up with your live stream topics? So if there's something that like really gains my attention since our last live stream, I'll just write it down at that very moment. But usually we try to get like between 6, 7. No, I'm just kidding. Like probably like 7 to 8 topics in actual for the stream. So on the day of, I'll just research like online CNBC. I'll go through Twitter. What's looking like the most popular stories there. What's popping in the Prospero signals. Hello, George. Welcome to the stream. What stocks are making the biggest moves? So I just really try to find the topics that the people are going to be most interested that are viewing the stream. So if you guys ever have a topic that's interesting and you want to hear it discussed on the stream, feel free to mention it in the Discord for sure throughout the week. That'll help me out, and we'll be able to talk about the things that are most interesting to you all as well. Just 2 or 3 topics for me to run through still before we jump on into them. We're going to bring up Palantir before the stream is over today. Palantir, we were talking about so much, I feel like in the first half of the year, kind of slowly died down a bit as the stock has been a little bit more sideways in the latter half after it ran so much. So how are we looking at that company heading into 2026? We have NVIDIA making the largest acquisition in that company's history, $20 billion. What does it mean for them? Why did they feel the need to do this at this moment? And last but not least, we are going to take a look back at some of the IPOs that we covered in 2025, Bullish, Figma, CoreWeave, Klarna, StubHub, and several others. And a lot of them are actually down quite a bit. So are they interesting? Buy the dips at this point? And why have there not been so many IPOs recently? We'll get into that as well. We will run back to the top here. But before we get into our overall market coverage, we have a question in the chat, George, so we can just jump right into this from this guy. He's asking about Zeta stock. Zeta is being hyped up on X for 2026. Any thoughts on Zeta?
I feel like we always have people asking about Zeta, and it always looks, kind of mediocre. Yeah, I mean, we've got the 41 profitability, 75 growth. I kind of remember being like, it's a little early in the profitability. 70 upside, 72 net option sentiment. It's got the social sentiment, but it's the same kind of thing. I think for a stock of its risk and its valuation level, and I'm assuming the valuation hasn't changed too much since the last time we checked. I mean, it looks like it's having a nice day today, which is the reason people are talking about it. It looks like there's better risk reward out there.
Now I have a question for you. So of the inputs you take in when you're deciding whether you're going to buy a stock or invest in something, a stock being hyped on social media, what effect does that have on you, on your opinion on a company? Does that actually hurt it in your eyes or help it in some cases?
It's just an amplification. If I already like something and it's getting social attention, that matters to me, but I don't form a thesis around social attention.
Got it. LAU in the chat, thoughts on CELH? Thank you.
It's been down in the dumps a little bit in our signals and price action for it had a moment though. Let's see. This, on the other hand, is looking as strong as it ever has. It's got an 82 upside. People are starting to like it more in the long term. That's on the upswing. Downside is on the downswing. I mean, unlike Zeta, where I would say that looks a little overhyped, I wouldn't add it to the high conviction portfolio. But this looks like something that if you like, you're getting some confirmation from the Prospero signals that it might be on the upswing.
Interesting. So we're going to have to watch that one as we head into early 2026. I want to pull up the QQQ and SPY right now because we're getting, there's only probably 1 or 2 trading days left after today of 2025. And year to date, SPY is up 17% right now, QQQ up 21%. Pretty crazy after the entire year, the April plummet we had, and then the roaring rally we had to highs. For the past couple months, we've kind of just been trending sideways. A lot of Wall Street firms have come out with targets for what they're expecting for 2026. Deutsche Bank said 16% returns, Morgan Stanley 13%, UBS 10%. The most bearish one of them all was Bank of America at 6%. How do you feel heading into 2026? Are those a safe range of bets? Could you see anything outside of those ranges? And then, if you had to put your odds on where we'll fall, where do you think?
I mean, it's been an interesting year, to say the least. You know me, I don't like to get too particular in this. I do think that things like that GDP there's a delay in reporting, and then all of a sudden GDP beats by way more than it normally beats. Like, I'm not going to say too much more than I don't think that's because our economy is so strong. Like, that it's surprising everybody. That doesn't quite add up to the situation that we're looking at, especially with the job loss, right? That doesn't particularly fit, right? Part of production is, people working. And, people readily admit that AI is not making up the production yet. So that whole picture to a massive GDP beat doesn't add up to me. Now, whether that's some numbers being reclassified and maybe we're not going to see bigger beats or whatever. I just think the way I'd like to put it is I think we're seeing enough interest in the economic numbers being controlled in a certain way and good that I just have a hard time seeing it this next year being a down year. Granted, there are a lot of, if you're smart, you're never going to be too confident in a particular number, right? Because there's a lot of political tensions. We're going into a midterm. Midterms can be bad years. There's a lot of geopolitical tensions. Some of these, we've got a lot of kind of active wars. There's a situation going on in Venezuela now that is raising in tension. I hesitate to be too confident. I think structurally we're heading towards a bull year, and that's probable. Whether it's a small or a big one, I think that really depends on how a couple things shake out, including the Michael Burry issue of if this is the year that, assets are getting marked more accurately, these chips are being depreciated. And if you think you can odds make that, you're lying to yourself. I think that is the issue with okay, is it a bull year or is it a big bull year? I think that issue is at the crux of it. But in terms of what could make it a bear year, another thing to name what's going on with the Bank of Japan. We've been harping on it, right? If they keep raising rates, that is a big drain to global capital on risk assets. And it might be something that even positive economic numbers in the US can't overcome too well. So I think those are all the important factors, but all in all, I'm expecting a bull year.
So, and if it is a bull year, it has to be driven by like AI and tech, right? There's no situation or scenario where you could see the markets going up and that sector specifically, or the tech sector not performing well.
Agreed, but I like nuclear. I like nuclear a lot, even more than I like tech
I did
on a
see. I
high
know
level.
you like LEU is like the one you've given the biggest bull case on probably, and looks great in the signals. But like Oklo and SMR are also pulling back a lot. There's one we haven't covered as much. I think its ticker is NNE. Do you like that whole space overall, or do you
Sure,
zone in on
Opco's got a
LEU?
42 net option sentiment right now, so maybe we're waiting a little more for a rebound. I don't like the problem with the actual reactors is the timeline on that is more unclear. The winners are more unclear, and that's more similarly to how I talk about the AI space, right? The AI hardware space, the accelerated computing space. I think of that very similarly as I think of the nuclear reactor space. Now, companies that I do harp on, like LEU and UUU, which is obviously a minor, right? They win regardless of who wins the reactor race. And yes, if reactor development is slower, does that harm their upside a little bit? Yes and no, right? Because even if it's slower here, one of the things I talk about with LEU is Korea is buying up some of the enriched uranium. They have a forward agreement, right? So even if the US is slower and other countries are still accelerating, LEU could be a winner there. Same with UUU, but to a lesser extent, just because I think that, the uniqueness of the enriched uranium and the process that LEU seems to have that makes them, kind of alone in their area, I think makes them particularly interesting in terms of the efficiencies. That's why they kind of go to my number one. Like anything, right? Oklo currently has a 95 upside and a 42 net option sentiment, right? Obviously, if the price goes down and that coincides with net option sentiment, I'm watching these things always, that coincides with net option sentiment going up, say to 85, 90 again, and the price is still depressed, I would be all over Oklo. But I need that kind of confirmation that the market thinks it's priced well again.
It is
Or
interesting.
I think is a better term than well.
I was looking at the market caps of the bunch of them, and like LEU and SMR are like around 4 billion, 5 billion, and then Akko is like 12 billion. So I don't know if that's kind of because all of their businesses are kind of based on the future. So if Aklo has the most priced in already based on the market cap, that would lead me to believe it has the most risk of a pullback from here.
Absolutely, and I think that's how people look at it.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to follow up on the other stock that we've been mentioning a lot, ASTS, because they finally had the launch that we were counting down to for weeks, it seemed like. And, the day after it started great. They were up over $90 a share. And then the rest of the day, and then today so far, a little bit of a sell the news, it seems like. So what is your confidence level? How are you feeling about ASTS, the launch that we were counting down for, how it went, and just your overall up-to-date view on them?
Yeah, I mean, it's a classic sell the news event. But what makes ASTS tough is they have another launch in January, right? And they shot down from like 100 in option sentiment that morning to like 91. You can see it in the graph, and before this larger dip. So I could have, as I do with the rules, sometimes say, hey, it's sensitive. There, a move from like 100 down to 91 is kind of a big deal, especially if it coincides with a news event. So I could have played it that way, but with all of these like big, they deployed, the largest broadband capacity broadband satellite ever, right? Bigger than Musk and all of his unlimited funds, right? They still did it, right? And there's more coming. It makes it very tough to get out of that name. Even if I'm like, you know what, it might go down another 20%, but it's had pretty strong support at 50. I'm going to do some research, see what else I might like better this weekend, and I might get out of it and look to re-enter it again. But like, that's the tough thing with ASTS. There's more coming. You never know when that thing's going to bottom out.
And this is a stock that just over a year ago was $2 per share. And in the past year alone, rallied up to 30, back under 20, up to 60, back to 40, up to 100, back to 60. So like there's a ton of volatility with this stock. So it's kind of what you're signing up for investing in this company, right? Like, sure, you can 5, 10, 20x, years from now from where we are today. But over the course of that return, you're going to get a lot of ups and downs. So you kind of have to be able to stomach some of the swings if you're going to invest in a company like this.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that I will say is like we named it Stock of the Year at the Modern Investor Summit, and it went up like 50% the following days. And then if people want to look at it's kind of interesting. I was on the Schwab Network on December 17th, and I pitched LEU and ASTS. Look at the charts those days, right? It's kind of the bottom for both. And I'm not saying this to say that, it's me or, although a lot of people were talking about me, especially the second time, a lot of the ASTS people were I was in their chatter. But what I will say is that these are stocks that could turn quickly, and there's a lot of energy behind them. There's a lot of people looking to short and swing trade them too, and I think we're seeing that, and that's why I think we're getting these ranges, because there is an opportunity for a stock that's so overvalued. Like, it's this conversation I'm having where I'm just like, I like it long term, but does that mean I have to take this 20% loss because it might go down to 50 again, maybe even bigger than a 20% loss? Like, no, that's what I'm asking myself right now. And that's the tough thing about these stocks with very frothy valuations, where you have to ask yourself, like, maybe I need to sell and get back in when it bottoms again. And that can make them very wobbly. But it's tough for that reason, because I also, I've held, even though we've had a couple bad days, and I know it could go down because, like, I don't know if today it could have shot back 15%, just because there's so much energy behind these launches and there's a good reason to be excited.
And I think we mentioned a stat, I forget the exact total, but it was something like 40 or 50 of them expected in 2026. Nick just shared something from Reddit. ASTS is getting a lot of interest for top 10 stock picks of 2026. There's a thread about it, how it's the top 10, 2025 performed 75%, assuming equal investment. So looks like a lot of people are getting on board with ASTS. And, it all started, your interest with it really started with the Prospero signals for it, right?
That's how it always starts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, Matt was bothering me about it before then. But I was watching it and it became interesting when it crossed a certain level in the signals.
Mm-hmm. Since we're on the space sector, I want to cover another story in this area of the market. It is now projected with a 70% odds on the betting markets that Morgan Stanley will be the financial backer for the SpaceX IPO next year. And I was actually curious, this is such a large IPO. Obviously, most of the story is surrounding SpaceX, but for Morgan Stanley, like themselves as their company, their stock, how important, how impactful will this IPO and them winning it be for them and their business?
These things, for a company of that size, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, I would say it's more of like, for a company like that, more than anything, it adds to their overall prestige, right? Because if you bank with them, you get early access to that IPO, right? And they could use that to be like, oh, we got the SpaceX IPO, and that could ultimately end up helping them have like a very good year in adding people to wealth management, which it inflates their fee base. That's way bigger than like, the appreciation on the shares that they get on a single IPO. It's a big IPO, it can make an impact, but normally that impact is much more important if they could make it part of like a larger sales pitch for their company to do more business, and it can work that way sometimes if you win like a deal, like a prestige deal like that.
And I imagine amongst like the top banks, there's almost no difference in terms of like what they can actually offer SpaceX like in their IPO process. So it's probably pretty ruthless in terms of like how you're going to win it in the end. Like you probably have to cut some things in some places. So maybe that's why it won't impact their business as much as I was thinking too. I did, while I was looking at this, I did check out JPM and notice that their market cap is now $900 billion. So just over 10%, about 11% return next year, and they could be the first $1 trillion bank in the markets. How likely do you think that is? Do you think we'll see that next year for JP Morgan?
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of the leader now. I would bet on them more than anyone else. I'm reading a little bit about this IPO. So it looks like they could be getting like 900 million to 1.2 billion. And then what's their total revenue? $61 billion, right? So there we go. Even if we're rounding up to 1.2, I mean, on a quarterly basis, that's not insignificant. Let's see this. So,
especially for like a bank which has pretty small growth usually, right?
That's on like the higher end of the fees. Yeah, so 75% of the quarterly revenue, that definitely moves the needle. But to the point about what they get, like I think it could be like 0.9 is the better number, because not like 900 million, so about 6%, that's still there. Because typically what you'll end up doing to get a SpaceX is you'll lower your fee requirements or something like that. You'll make some kind of offer. Sometimes there's like other promises, like we could bring this kind of board member in, or that. It's a wide pitch about the future value or this kind of future financing. That's the kind of things you're pitching. I mean, sometimes it's just like sometimes it's just perks. Like I know, like NASDAQ versus NYSE, they get in some pretty serious perk because there's like legalities of what it. So I know one of NASDAQ's perks, if you're like where they're really chasing you down, they'll let you have like a New Year's party on at their really cool like time. So you'll get to see the ball drop, like front row seats. So they get very interesting with the perks. But it is like it's way easier as an investment bank to offer those perks. But it does, like there's that, and then there's just sometimes relationships, what it comes down to. Like at the end of the day, like people are going to promise Elon Musk the moon. You could probably get like the other bank to match whatever the other one does. So then it just becomes a question of who you want to go with.
It's going to be interesting to watch that develop, but what's been interesting to watch already develop, and especially in the last several weeks, has been silver and the rate at which it's moving this year. Currently at a 162% gain just for 2025 for silver. It's now surpassed Apple and is the third largest asset in the world at this point. I don't think anybody, no matter how contrarian you are, would have projected this heading into this year. Gold has been, very good as well. Let me pull that up also and see where we're at for gold year to date. Year to date up about 70 and 70.5%. So gold and silver rallying furiously, especially as of late. When we were following gold earlier this year, I was asking you, is it a concerning thing? Because, typically they're like hedges to the market. People are kind of worried about stuff and maybe going into those. Is that what we're seeing now? If that's not the case, what's happening? What's driving gold and silver to, or should I say silver and gold? It is that time of the year to perform so well in 2025.
Well, I think the case on it, we always land in the exact same place on this because the case on it is pretty simple, where it's just like people like it because it will go up if the market goes down. And if it's also performing well when the market goes up, that's kind of a dual purpose thing. But we always pitch like we think there's things, especially now, there is starting to be some bubble risk if the market keeps going up, especially that the bottom will fall out of that very strongly, right? I don't think it's a good time to buy silver because it's just so bubbly. If the market goes down, it will go up more. But, as we're saying, I think most people are expecting more of a bull year. And I'm not a good whole year of 2026. Maybe if it's a volatile but good year, people will keep buying. But I just don't see this sustaining. And even if it does, like I've said, in a bull year, I'd rather own, ASTS or LEU or something like NBIS. But the question then becomes like, well, would I like to own it if the market goes down? Yeah, but again, always I'd rather be short the right tech stocks in that case. Something like Rigetti that we've been shorting a lot. I'd way rather have that than be long silver.
Could this be some kind of like blow off top we're seeing right now? I mean, it's up 40%. And this, we're talking about like silver here, like the old boring, silver metal is up 40% in a month. So do you see this like pulling back pretty drastically soon? Or if not, just kind of, trending sideways?
I mean, I think at the end of the day, we're just in a very bubbly market. So it's hard to say. We always say that part of it, right? Where it's like, well, it's not about if we're in a bubble, like it is a bubble. It's about how long until the bubble pops, right? And if you look at how much, you have to remember, silver is like a hard asset. So it has way more of a bottom than some of these tech companies, even if there is a bubble. But yeah, I just think I think it's the same thing that we see in tech stocks, right? There's some value to it. There gets to be some momentum. It raises the internet chatter, which gets more momentum bots involved, which creates more internet chatter. Like I hear people talking about silver all the time. And it's crazy because at least like a consumer packaged good, at least if someone's talking about Tesla, right? And they're like, I'm going to have the Tesla bot in my house. I'm going to buy Teslas. I'm going to get any full self-driving thing. And I know my friends are, right? At least that's grounded in some real world logic, right? The average person that's saying buy silver online, I doubt they have any idea of like what the value implications are, what the triggers are, what the real like way to value the market is. And I think that that's the really tough thing about pure momentum plays. And I think that like it's the same thing we always say, where it's just like, well, why would institutions play these pure momentum plays? Because they have advantages in getting out, right? The second it turns, their institutions are the reason it's going to go down so quickly, right? Because the second it passes certain, like 1 hour, 4 hour EMA walls, right? One day, they're out. And the bigger ones, the smarter ones that have better access to the trading pipes, they're out sooner. So they're the ones that will, play those, the Citadels and their clients of the world. They're like, we love this. We'd love for it to keep going up. We'll play max momentum because we know we're the first ones that are going to get out. And that's how we get these bubbles these days.
All right, last question on this topic. So a lot of people have begun questioning the legitimacy of the data recently. And I think a lot of people have seen rises in grocery prices and asset prices and real estate. And then you see the inflation numbers and you don't know if they are matching up. Do you think the move we're seeing in gold and silver maybe forecasting higher inflation, but also maybe pricing in actually higher inflation that we've experienced in the past couple of years than the data may have you believe? And do you think that's kind of snitching on the reality of how much money printing and inflation has occurred?
Yeah, I absolutely like if there's a new um if there's a new Fed chair and they cut rates quickly, which I wouldn't call that unlikely, right? Or I should say when, right? It's an only question of when. It might be sooner, it might be later, right? Um, those that's a likely outcome, right? I think if that happens, inflation is inevitable. And I talk a lot to like my smart macro friends. I have a good friend that's like a currency trader and trades emerging markets. And he's like, yeah, if that happens, we are definitely going to get inflation. And so you draw that line, and um, I've talked to some other people that are just like, I don't think this administration cares about inflation, right? They'd rather have the growth and deal with the inflation problem later. So yeah, I think that's a good call, and they might be trying to get in early, and this might be smart from that perspective. Just knowing that it's coming. But it could also be momentum. But I do think that's a good point.
So a stock I wanted to follow up on that we haven't covered as much lately is Palantir stock, sitting at, actually, you know what's crazy? Silver outperformed Palantir year today, which is wild, but up 148% right now. Getting close to the all-time highs again. It briefly crossed $200 per share at $189 right now. How do you feel about this company, the innovation that they've offered, their moat, the growth their business has, the valuation, just the current state of your thought on Palantir stock heading into 2026? Is it going to be anywhere near your top 10 companies or anywhere near having a position in your portfolio?
Not at 64 upside. Don't think so. I think the thing about Palantir, it was always overvalued. It was just a question of like how people were valuing the hype machine. And I think they were in better position when there was more churn, when there was more Doge stuff. I think the government contracts portion of how they were valued haven't materialized as fast as some people might have been hoping to value it at that level. And I think that's where it's at right now. And then I think when that happens and it's not as hot of a stock, people's eyes wander to other things. I think a lot of the Palantir money is in Tesla. Like, I think there's a lot of overlap between people that like those stocks. And I think, you look at how the stocks have performed. I think there's a lot of people that took their Palantir profits and put it into Tesla. Maybe put it into some of the accelerated computing names that are really going off. That's what I'm seeing. And then I think in terms of like the long-term institutional demand, I think some of them, like I said, I don't think some of those structural government things came through as much as some of those people were hoping. And I think some of the rest of it is just a manifestation of understanding that if it doesn't have the same excitement around it in retail as it once did, it doesn't have the same long-term upside.
So the ultimate momentum stock, it sounds like you kind of need that extra bit of energy or driver beyond the actual business.
It needs the headlines to keep coming, right? And they haven't. That's an issue when you're a momentum stock, right? And that's what it's kind of the opposite of what we were talking about with ASTS, right? Also driven a lot by momentum. But I'm just like, there's launches coming, right? And like maybe I've learned I don't want to hold it through the launch, but into these launches, we always see good momentum.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see. Alex Karp's a smart guy. He's probably realizing this and what he's going to say next about to excite investors in the business, you know?
There you go. That's certainly not helping.
Question in the chat for George. The insiders of PAL sold so far 150 million in the last 6 months.
And that'll also, kill the momentum of a rabid investor base, right? How are you going to get your people to hold, like, when you're not holding yourself?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people see through that. Did that used to be different? I don't know if you remember back in the day, like, but before social media was as prevalent, like if people were able to sniff that out as much of like when insiders were selling.
I think it's different. It used to be, I think, a much bigger deal. Just because I think it didn't there wasn't the same hype around the stocks to begin with. So I think that, when it was pure institutions, and like when I first started on Wall Street, it was like you had a relationship with people and as a buy side analyst, right? And it was much more about if you did what Wall Street thought was acceptable, right? If you sold, if you kind of did it in line with what Wall Street expected and it was all a big agreed upon thing, then the market didn't react. And that's when Wall Street had more power, right? It used to be that even the largest company CEOs, like a lot of them still feared Wall Street, right? Now we have a bunch of people who are larger than life, right? Like Wall Street fears Elon Musk and Jensen Huang in terms of like, they don't want to get on their bad side. They want access. They want understanding, right? That dynamic didn't used to be the case. It used to be much more like you go to Wall Street and be like, you think it's okay if I exit this number of shares? Like that's how it used to be. And so obviously if that happened, there wasn't the same reactions. And of course there wasn't the retail reaction to it, because some of the retail reaction is seeing like, oh shit, they sold and the stock is moving and retail will also sell, or shorters will be trying to hit stop losses that they have the visibility into in retail, because retail is a bigger part of the market than it used to be. So the dynamics are totally different, making the situation completely different.
That's super interesting. I've never heard about like the Wall Street versus like individual dynamic before. And when you're talking about Wall Street, like who are you speaking about? Like the banks, basically?
Banks, hedge funds, your largest shareholders, right? And you can also look at that as a change, right? Now the largest shareholder is like BlackRock, Vanguard. They're not really calling you up, telling you how to run your business, right? But in the 90s, you could bet for damn sure that the 5 largest shareholders in your company you were talking to pretty damn often, and you had a relationship with. You were running a lot of stuff by because you didn't want them to sell, and they were very active managers, right? Now BlackRock's a robot. You don't have to worry about them. You don't have to have a personal relationship with them. And that has also given more power to the CEOs, because BlackRock, Vanguard, they don't even have the proper human resources to lean on people that way, right? Now, the opposite, like that all being said, Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, like now if he's calling you up and he wants something from you, right? That call isn't made that often, but there's not many people saying no to what he wants, right? And that's going on behind closed doors. He's such a secretive person. I can't even tell you, like, I don't even know about him enough to tell you what he might be calling about. But I can promise you he is exerting his power here and there, and you're probably never hearing about it because it's probably just like a sir, yes sir. Like, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if even like Jensen Huang got a call like that from Larry Fink and he wasn't like sir, yes sir, but he was like, understanding the writing on the wall, and like you don't want to piss Larry Fink off.
It's funny you bring Jensen Huang up, because we have a story about NVIDIA as well here. They made their largest acquisition ever as a company acquiring Grok for $20 billion, which was a 9-year-old chip startup. I saw this. I was wondering if it was Grok connected to Elon, like part of his AI, but no, completely unrelated. But what are your thoughts on NVIDIA making their largest acquisition ever to date?
I had never heard of Grok, but uh, I was kind of disappointed for a few reasons. The first is I was like, oh, like what new business is like NVIDIA getting into? And I mean, maybe that's like something that Meta does. You're like, oh, what are they splurging on today? That's like kind of tangential. And so I was first disappointed when I was like, oh, it's not anything new. But then as I thought about it more, I was a little disappointed in kind of their confidence level. Like, they're big, and you really like when you're that big, it behooves you to eat anyone that's even a remote competitor. But I kind of always liked, the leather jacket confidence of Jensen Huang, where it's just like, we make the best chips and we will always make the best chips. This is kind of a bit more insecurity than I would expect from NVIDIA, but also smart, right? It's kind of the maturity of a company like that. And what I might be thinking more of is like a young Jensen Huang that's like, we make the best chips, we're always going to make the best chips. And it's easier to say that if you can't afford to acquire a company for 20 billion, right? You can't really afford to eat your competitors. You don't have that kind of capital yet. So part of that could just be not a fear, but a maturity, right? When you get to a certain size and you have the resources that NVIDIA does, like even if you think there's a 98% chance that they'll never make chips as well as you, or maybe they have a certain subset that they make better than you, and you just want to get that. I don't know in enough detail, but the point I'm trying to make is even if you think there's a 98% chance that they'll never beat you, it's still worth it to buy that like 2% de-risk option at the size that you're at as NVIDIA. And look, at the end of the day, the market votes, right? The market seems to like this acquisition. So there you go. Another feather in Jensen Huang's cap. Big price to pay, but the market seems to think it's worth it.
And we'll see. A lot of these big tech companies, I feel like they've made acquisitions over the years, and at the times they seem like nothing. It's funny, we just got a comment about Google. I was going to mention like them acquiring YouTube. Like nobody thought of anything, and now look at YouTube. Like we'll see. You got to trust Jensen Huang, I feel like, to spot a diamond in the rough.
Yeah, and Google views that risk even more widely, right? I think the YouTube is a good point where it's like anything even remotely adjacent to their business, they'll eat. And it served them well. Like I think DeepMind is the really, really good example of that, right? It's what's helping them catch up on Gemini, and they could have had that mindset of like, oh, we do the best research, we'll have the best AI, but they didn't have that mindset. And DeepMind, is obviously an excellent acquisition for them. I mean, not only in some of the high level AI stuff that will serve them well long term, but they found a way to make it add value for Gemini, which our readers know I was waiting for, and maybe gave up on them a little bit. But now I still feel sort of vindicated.
You were right all along. We have one more topic to go through on the stream today. Had over 1,500 people tune in, so thank you guys for finding us on a weird time and a busy week with the holidays. If you have any last minute questions, feel free to share them in the chat. Hit that like button if you've enjoyed the stream so far. Appreciate you all tuning in. I want to bring back up some of the IPOs that have taken place this year. I have noticed as of late, obviously we've had some volatility in the markets. It seems like we haven't gotten as many IPOs. There was a stretch there over the summer. It was like every week we were getting a stock that was, a popular company, and people were excited about them coming public. I'll go through a few of them. A lot of them are down like 30, 40, 50%, even from IPO prices. So we'll see if you are interested in watching any of these companies throughout 2026 and maybe buying the dip on any of them. So just here's a short list. If anybody in the chat knows of an IPO that you've been following, feel free to comment it. But I have Bullish, Chime, CoreWeave, Figma, Firefly, Gemini, Klarna, and StubHub. Oh, one more, USAR. So it's a list of companies. A lot of them have not done great. A few of them are trading above their IPO prices. I think of that list, I think CoreWeave is actually the best since IPOing. But yeah, how do you feel about those IPO companies and the fact that we haven't seen a lot of IPOs recently?
I just cruised around a little bit. I mean, CoreWeave we're always looking at because I do think people are watching it long term. I do think there's institutions that have a lot of faith in it that might think it got a little overvalued, but they're looking to get back in. I just looked at bullish, okay, 79 option, sentiment 59 upside. None of the other ones seem all that interesting to me. I looked at Chime, looked very mediocre, and I think we always kind of talk about the IPO market as for a while it wasn't doing well, and then it was extremely frothy as we had this big rally to all-time highs, and there was a lot of confidence, a lot of exuberance. And then I think, when volatility happens, I think IPOs are some of the easiest targets. I think for a few reasons. I think the first is that they obviously they're newer companies. They get priced pretty aggressively on the growth, right? And that makes them, I think, easy for people to think of, right? If you think of a company you've owned, like especially retail, but institutions can be this way a little bit too. If you haven't owned a company for as long, you're less loyal to a company you might have had for 4 years and done a lot more work on. For institutions, it's really understanding the drivers and how the market prices it a lot more than just blind loyalty. But also associated with that is sometimes with the IPO, you'll have something like a 6-month lockup, right? And when that ends, you might be in a big hurry to sell and take whatever profits you can get. I mean, I think we saw some of that with CoreWeave, for sure. I don't know how long the lockups were for them. That would be an interesting question. Sometimes it's 6 months, sometimes longer. It really depends on where you get in on the deal. But no, I think it's with volatility is a hard time, because even when you do get that, we saw this with bullish, I'd say more than any other company, right? Even when you get that rally, once the markets are very volatile, you could have a very quick correction and maybe end up lower than if you were just, priced well and kind of just moved up with your business over time instead of depending on momentum.
And Nick is following up on LGN and GEMI, so Gemini. And I had a follow-up too. I'm wondering, it seems like there's a lot of factors now coming to mind of a lot of IPOs coming to the market in the summer, a lot of momentum fury, a lot of stocks were rallying, silver and gold rallying. Were these signs that the market was a little overheated, and are they still signs at this point? Because the last time I remember a bunch of IPOs happening, it was the draft class of Robinhood and Coinbase. That was 2021, I feel time frame, and there was a lot of hype about them. And then they did nothing for years, and these companies were able to regain their footing, but they kind of preceded 2022, which wasn't a great year in the market. So I'm wondering if that's kind of a similar path we're following here.
I mean, it's hard to say, right? Is the market too frothy? Because we're saying, we just crushed a GDP estimate, right? So, you could make the argument that the growth is there, right? That we're still seeing the NVIDIAs of the world crush every earnings. So there's a market is very frothy, but there's also the market is expanding argument too, which is why I lean, bullish in the new year. But obviously it's concerning. I mean, this is one of the toughest markets to read, and you look no further than the way Jerome Powell talks about his dual mandate, right? You look at it, and that's a very real thing where we have to look at we do have inflation risks, and we at the same time we have job loss risks, and those normally do not really coincide. So you can't really underestimate what a tough market this is, even while acknowledging that it's a bullish market.
I think that's going to do it for our topics today. We could get on over into the switch and do the model portfolio here. We actually, this is the third to last stream of 2025. So yeah, actually, I was going to ask, I think we are doing a normal schedule next week, Nick. I haven't heard anything else from George. We'll double check when he gets back in here on the other side. But yes, I believe it'll be back to our normal schedule, which for those that don't know is Mondays 11 a.m., Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Maybe if I had to guess, maybe Wednesdays will be different because I don't know if the market's a half day or if it's closed the next day. I'm not sure what's going on next week in the market. Yes. So is the market a half day next Wednesday? It might be a little different than if that's the case, but we'll hear from the big man when he tunes back in. Let's take a look at QQQ and SPY net option sentiment in Prospero. When I checked in the beginning of the stream today, they were at the highest levels I have seen in, if not months, weeks. So it's actually looking like the Santa rally is on the doorstep. The QQQ, for those longtime Prospero viewers, you know our net option sentiment line in the sand of bullish bearish for QQQ and SPY is 40. The QQQ was just there at the beginning of the stream. I'm checking now, it's actually just below, but it's still a lot higher than it's been at for many of the recent days and weeks. It is at 37 at the moment for the QQQ and 21 for the SPY. So both up off their lows that they were single digits, and I think SPY was at 0 for many days in a row recently. So looking more bullish, at least in the SPY and the QQQ. You're seeing a nice uptrend too. If you have the Prospero app and you open up the SPY, you can see if you scroll all the way to the bottom, there's time series graphs, and the net option sentiment one was flatlined at 0 and now consistently rising. So that's what you like to see when you want some momentum building. The QQQ looks very similar too. So it looks like we are seeing some good things happening, developing in SPY and QQQ. NOS, the markets, wow, they're doing like nothing today. The QQQ is up 0.1%. SPY is almost at triple zeros. It's down 0.03%. We'll see. I would love to see it finish at triple zeros. I feel like I think I've seen that happen once, literally in the entire time I've been watching the stock market. Dow Jones is down 0.18%. The Russell's actually moving a little bit, down about 0.75% here. So looks like everybody took off the trading day. All of the big market algos are just taking a break today after the holidays. Let me type in a chat right now that we are doing the model portfolio live for everybody who's tuning in, so they're not confused. So if you're new, George is going to make live moves to our model portfolio, ads, drops. You'll get to see how we are positioning, what the portfolio is looking like, and yeah, stick around. Don't go anywhere. I haven't checked in on our like totals in a while. We'll see how we're doing on YouTube today. I hope we're in the double digits already. Maybe we could even push for 20 as a late Christmas present for the Prospero YouTube channel. George, next Wednesday, I think Monday we're normal stream time. Are we going to be normal on Wednesday too? I think someone said it might be a half day in the markets.
Oh, is it?
Let me double check this, but
if it is, maybe we'll just do Monday.
I think it's just closed Thursday, so I think Wednesday should be okay.
Yeah, we'll do Wednesday too.
So yeah, everybody, next week is a normal schedule. So Monday 11 a.m., Wednesday 3 p.m. We'll be live on YouTube and X.
All right, let's get this going. QQQ and SPY and option sentiment are pretty frothy.
I was talking while you were doing the switchover. Their trends are great too. Like they're both trending upwards, higher highs. QQQ even in the beginning of the stream, actually it's back there right now, over 40 at 41. Santa rally's here.
Okay. Let's do this. Let's share our screen. Okay. Doesn't seem to want to be cooperating. All right, so what are they at?
The QQQ is at 41 and SPY 21.
Whoa. Are you ready to do this yet? Okay. Not ready to do this yet.
You know what's really surprising to see, especially after we covered that Google Zillow story like last week or 2 weeks ago? Zillow is now in our short-term bull list, 86 net option sentiment.
Interesting.
Is Google going to buy out Zillow?
It's a good question. Tech's having a good day. Okay.
Small caps having a bad day with a bullish QQQ NOS. We won't load up on these too much, but we'll look for opportunities. Looks like it is a good time to add a little tech long. And look for opportunities in energy short.
For whatever reason, when you copy the URL of this, it doesn't work, and you have to you always have to do this just to make sure that it works. It's pretty annoying. We're sending aged stuff here too often. Okay, we have that. I know some people have requested that we don't leave it like this, so I'm trying to remember. Okay. How many do we have? 30. 4. Okay. That helps. Can you look up Sohu and Straw net option sentiment? Do you see those tickers?
Sohu is at 19 and it is trending downward. And Stra, STRA, is at 32 and also trending downward.
I wasn't on my computer for like a week and I missed it. Damn, NEU. Interesting. Oh, look. Adding Zeta. Good momentum score. We can't ignore. And here's Zillow.
Do I see
all of our conversation pieces?
SJM in momentum? Is that Smuckers?
Yeah.
How the heck does that have momentum?
We're not getting into Smuckers, though. Do we want Apple? Yeah, why not? All right. Oh, it's so nice to have like something good to copy paste too. My laptop screen was not cutting it. Multiple monitors. All right, and we are going to do this here. And we are going to make Brent's life easy. And we're going to send it at we're going to send it just at market close. All right. Any questions before we depart?
Yeah, someone said they like the sound of your keyboard.
Oh, I love this keyboard. It annoys some people, but I like the haptics. It's nice to know that you're hitting the keys.
Which keyboard is it if our viewers want to make a purchase?
I don't know. It's a cyber power mechanical keyboard.
Oh yeah, that looks legit. Well, there you go, ENT.
But yeah, I love it. All right, everybody. Have a great weekend. I'll see you on Monday.
Yep, we're going to be back short turnaround, so just a couple days we'll be back live here. So see you all then. Thank you, George. Have a great weekend, everybody. Talk soon. Bye, everyone.